World of Warcraft Shadowlands, the pre-patch is live, and I basically decided to play some catch-up on the stuff that I said just about a year ago on where Blizzard was taking the game. So, a couple of years ago, I started playing Elder Scrolls Online, and with some of the more recent Blizzard gaffes, like you think you do but you don't, or do you folks have phones, or just the overall snubbing the player base even as the game continues not being what it used to be, ultimately I decided to make Elder Scrolls Online into my main game. The big reason why Elder Scrolls Online is my main game, with game streaming and playing video games and MMOs in general, is because of the player freedom. There are some things that ESO does not do very well, but what they do actually do very well makes up for that. So, what you have is, on one hand, you have Warcraft, you have WoW, where Blizzard has the Blizzy knows best attitude, as I call it. The waggy finger thing that I've been seeing since Burning Crusade, when people pointed out things like how broken Ret Paladins were. And the response was basically, well, we're not doing this because there's a giant song and a dance talking around in circles. This was a problem up until Lich King, and then we saw these kinds of attitudes come back with Warlords of Draenor as it became a near patchless expansion with all the cut content and all the things that the player base did not like. And now we've seen it with BFA. So, with the announcement of World of Warcraft Shadowlands and the revamped leveling system, basically you have a starting experience, either Exile's Reach or your character or your race start zone, like humans, orcs, etc., wherever the start zone is for them. So you pick your starting experience, then you pick an expansion, and that expansion scales with you from 10 to 50, and then Shadowlands picks up at 50 to 60. 60 is the new level cap after the level squish. Here's the problem, though. Elder Scrolls Online has this for the entire game. It's basically where ESO picks up where the Elder Scrolls offline games have in terms of here's a world, go do stuff. It does have some issues, like sometimes if you do the stories in different order, you might get some weird plot stuff and whatnot because you're doing zones out of order. And there really can't be too much other than the main quest of an overarching story for the entire world like there is with WoW. But what you do get with ESO is you get an environment where you can do basically anything you want, anytime you want. If you spend a lot of time running dungeons with your friends and you level up most of the way to level cap, and then you decide you want to go back and start the story in Glenumbra or Morrowind or something like that, you can do that. You'll see the story and things like that because everything scales. In World of Warcraft, one of the biggest problems of all time with this game is that the expansion packs don't really expand the game as much as they move you to somewhere else. And you think about it, the percentage of the game that matters, and I've got an old blog entry from years, maybe it was years ago at this point, Asmongold talking about how it was more worth it to buy a boost than it was to level up in WoW because of all the levels and stuff. As well as the fact that time and again, if you run WoW Census, you'll see everybody in the zones for the current expansion and everything else will be a ghost town. So you have this huge world representing over 15 years of video game development, and a very small sliver of it is what actually matters. And after the launch of an expansion, you get to the latest raid is what matters, and catch-up mechanics basically make it so you're skipping all of this stuff to, as I've been saying for years with WoW, get to the good stuff. Probably one of the worst things that has ever happened in the world of RPGs is this idea that nothing you're doing right now matters. You just want to get to the good stuff, like the end game or raiding or something like that. And so no matter how much work is put into things like the leveling experience, it eventually takes, a side stage to we're downing the latest boss, getting the latest gear, metagaming the living daylights out of things, and, some people enjoy doing that. But when you're raiding all the time, you're seeing the same bosses, same dungeons, same everything over and over again until you burn out and take a break from the game, or a new tier comes out. What about, say, maybe some story going on in some zone that you missed while you were leveling up? That just sits there and you never get around to it. And if you do, you're past the level. So God mode is fun when you're one-shotting everything or if you're farming mats. But if you want to experience the story and not have it be totally boring, like all those level 80s that were doing all the low-level quests in Cataclysm instead of rolling new characters, because if they didn't, they'd get griefed by all the level 80s one-shotting everything and slowing them down. You know, there really is no way to experience the story as anything other than, haha, I one-shotted everything. Heck, Blizzard even had to add a foam sword to the game so that if you're doing low-level quest mobs that you had to use something on when they were close to death, you could actually finish the quest. So, what Blizzard has with Shadowlands, and this entire playlist that I've created on my YouTube channel, Shadowlands is level 49 problem. This has everything that I've talked about up to this point. Blizzard has the technology to make World of Warcraft have feature parity and experience parity with Elder Scrolls Online in terms of player freedom. Question is, are they ever going to want to do that? I talk about Classic Mode and Timewalker Mode. Timewalker Mode was the idea I had before Chromie Time was announced, and Chromie Time turned out to be something kind of half-cooked. This is something I run into with Blizzard a lot, with the hubris that floats around in that company sometimes, is that they want to look original. They don't want to look like they're doing something that just because some other game was already successful with it. So they try and put their own take on it, and they end up watering it down in the process. Chromie Time is exactly that. So we can switch back to the other browser now. We can look at some of these. Let's get some of these old WoW pictures off of here. So the problem with Chromie Time is that it's not game-wide at this point. So let's say you want to take a break from raiding and go back and, you know, do some zone you never got around to and whatnot. Well, Chromie Time auto-disables at level 50, as I found out with my own main character, who's now level 50, but I'm probably gotta have more fun in the near term with alts who are not level 50, because it won't be totally boring to go back and get the Legion achievements done, finish class halls, order halls, zones I never quested in, dungeons I never ran. And so what we have here is we have an environment where it is more worth it to freeze your character at level 49 until you're ready to take him into the Shadowlands. So here's what I would do. Shadowlands launches, you take your main into Shadowlands because your main already has everything done in the prior expansions. But for your alts, when they get to 49, go to Stormwind or Orgrimmar and talk to that NPC to freeze your level. So that way, no matter what you're doing when, it's not going to bore you to death. Or maybe you have some nostalgia or something. Maybe you really liked Wrath of the Lich King, for example, and you just want to go back and experience that all over again. You want to go back to Howling Fjord and Grizzly Hills, or maybe you liked certain dungeons or some other stuff like that. I was a huge fan of Grizzly Hills. I used to call it Grizzly Hills National Park because back then it was really cool to see a WoW zone that looked like a peaceful forest like that. You know, and not necessarily like Elwyn Forest or even, you know, the Night Elf Forests or anything. But so if you want to have a nice little nostalgia tour, you can go to Northrend and not be bored in 5 minutes because you're not nuking everything by breathing on them wrong or something. So here's the thing, though. Your level 49 characters freeze the level. They can do anything in any order like it's Elder Scrolls Online. But once you hit level 50, you actually get booted back to your capital city. So what I recommend Blizzard do is actually make it so that this becomes a feature you can toggle on at any time, and much like War Mode in Battle for Azeroth, it puts you in a different phase, so you're not griefed by all the people farming mats or something by one-shotting everything. Said this in some of the discussions I had last year on the old radio style format. So let's take a look at how Chromie Time has basically... see here, turn that off. Let's look at how Chromie Time has panned out. We know it's basically player freedom, but not quite as good as it could be in Elder Scrolls Online. All right. From Wowhead, and these links are on my Twitter, twitter.com/MultimediaJay. It's a new feature in the Shadowlands pre-patch. Allows players to level from 10 to 50 in any zone they desire, from vanilla to BFA. Activating Chromie Time changes the player to a different phase. We like that. Which causes all quests and objectives to scale up to level 50. So basically, Chromie Time is ESO mode. Hey, I don't even have the browser on the screen. There we go. Might help with... That's why you have a second monitor. Imagine if I did the entire show like that. Duh. So yeah, so you're in a different phase, and basically everything up until Shadowlands is playing like ESO or Guild Wars 2. So there'll be a little bit of challenge, but it won't be completely it won't be completely effortless here. You can only activate Chromie time after having a character reach level 50 without it. If you're leveling your first character, you can still level in old world zones like Lich King or Mist, but they'll only scale up to their maximum normal level. So this is interesting. So when you first play through the game now, you're going to get a little tour of all the expansions with your first character. And then once you get to level 50 and go off into the Shadowlands, your alts can now activate this and freeze things. What's one of the problems with alts? You know, you have everything done on your main, but do you want to go back and do stuff on the alts, or was there a memorable quest line or something along those lines? So we're going to showcase this and fiddle around with this in-game. I'm already having some fun with like a level 1 priest that's running around a couple different zones. There are minimum levels though, so you can't go too far from where you start, but what you run into is you have a lot of freedom because of the level squish. So you can start a character at single-digit levels and technically get away with killing mobs in Westfall, because the old rules for, you know, when stuff turns red and stuff like that have been radically relaxed by the level squish. I had a level 3 priest in Westfall last night that was smiting down wolves right inside the zone. So I've been kicking the tires on this, getting my mods up to date and things like that. So storm into Orgrimmar, there's a Chromie NPC, and you can turn this on. So it's near the faction embassy where all the allied races are. You select your expansion, which selects what dungeons you can queue for in the dungeon finder. But here's the thing, you can change this at any time. So if you want to do different stuff, just go back to Chromie and change it. Not quite the player freedom that you have in ESO, but it's a step. It's doable with a couple extra steps. Once Chromie time is enabled, you are able to play in any expansion regardless of the one chosen. Yes, I went on a tour day getting my ass kicked the other night. Beginning with Burning Crusade, there were huge enemies wandering around zones that could stomp you into the ground, like the Fell Reaver in Hellfire Peninsula. I took a character around just for fun, got stomped by the Fell Reaver, the Storm Giant and Wrath of the Lich King, and the Whale Shark and Cataclysm, all in a single, because of this new feature. It was kind of funny, but but that's the thing. This is how the world scaling was rolled out. Now, in ESO, you don't really have a choice in the matter. Some people may want to farm mats, they may want to be super powerful, and it kind of eats into the feeling of player progression when you have everything leveling with you. So if Blizzard played their cards right and they allowed Chromie time to be a thing you could turn on anytime and not just for your level up experience, they would have an edge on ESO, because people that want to farm or solo raids and stuff, they still have that option because you're not forced into everything scaling with you. But if you don't want to one-shot everything because nostalgia or whatever, or you don't want the world to be super boring outside of the current zones, turning this on is awesome. See, fastest for leveling. This article looks at the tests and stuff like that. So world scaling without Chromie time, vanilla is 10 to 30, Burning Crusade 10 to 30. So the original trilogy, so to speak, is 10 to 30. Cataclysm 30 to 35. Mists of Pandaria is also 10 to 35. Warlords of Draenor, Legion, BFA. Oh, so everything. Yeah, so if you don't have Chromie time, you can go pretty much anywhere at level 10, which is what Blizzard was looking for here. So, as you can see from me stumbling over my own words trying to explain this, so Blizzard, last year I talked about Blizzard's version of these ESO things being half-cooked, and considering how I'm stumbling over my own words trying to explain all of this, yeah, it's a little more complicated than it needs to be. But you can see the potential here. If Blizzard sets this up so you can turn it on and off, you can decide how you want to play when, and in an expansion that's supposed to be about so-called player agency and self-expression, why wouldn't they put that in? My prediction is that they eventually do. And the reason why I can say this is because, as a veteran of Rep Paladins getting fixed in Wrath of the Lich King, Blizzard, or should I say the second half of Burning Crusade, in time for the Lich King pre-patch, I have already seen something where Blizzard is very tenacious in rolling something out, and they roll things out baby steps. They solve a problem with the game one little step at a time. So it would not surprise me if Chromie time started out the way it is now, but maybe next expansion or a couple patches from now, The feedback makes its way to the Blizzard devs. They realize how they can make WoW more competitive versus rival games these days, and they roll out this feature. Probably not without a ton of internal discussion, and if people are talking about it on the forums, getting their fingers wagged. Well, other games do this, but that doesn't mean it's the best for our game. Until they sheepishly add it in anyways. The classic example I give, I can't really say classic anymore, vintage example. Burning Crusade. Free spell damage for healers. Warhammer Online Age of Reckoning was in development back then, and people were like, oh yeah, paladins or warrior priests are not wimps in that game. So people are like, WoW equals waiting on Warhammer. So here's the thing though. The developers working on Warhammer were like, there's no wimpy standing in the back going, and I heal, and I heal. Everybody gets to fight. And at the same time in WoW, you had healers who couldn't do anything outside of raids because all they got was plus healing on their gear, so their offensive abilities were abysmal. There was one priest I knew who played a holy priest, had a rogue ult for literally the entire rest of the game besides raids because it wouldn't be slow as molasses. And so eventually the solution was there was plus spell damage and healing gear, gave you roughly equal amounts. The healing gear was all healing. That changed to like a 75-25 thing, where you still got the same amount of healing, but you actually got a little bit of spell damage as well, just not as much as the dedicated gear. So let's see here. Level ranges in Chromie time, 1 to 50, 15 to 50, etc. 30 to 50 for Old Doom. And this is the thing with, yeah, this all stops at 50. Etc., etc. And so here's everything. So as you progress through the expansions, there will be minimum levels, even with Chromie time, that keep it so that the harder parts of the game are still hard. That's perfectly understandable. Guild Wars 2 does that. Guild Wars 2 will down-level you, but you still have to reach a certain level. You can't just go running off into a high-level zone right off the bat. Elder Scrolls Online, you can pretty much go anywhere at level 1. There may be issues with that. It makes the world a little less believable when there's really no such thing as a more dangerous part of the world, but that's in line with the way the offline Elder Scrolls games work, where you basically can wander around the world and it's the dungeons and the areas in the main quests where things will get dangerous. But that's a design decision. I don't want World of Warcraft to become a copycat of any other game out there. What I'm looking for Blizzard to do is succeed at what they themselves try to do. And that is put their own spin on things, so to speak, put their own twist on ideas they may be inspired by from other games. Because the reverse is true. There have been Final Fantasy XIV devs that have talked about how they're inspired by Blizzard. So we know there's stuff in Final Fantasy XIV that was inspired by WoW. There's nothing whatsoever wrong with World of Warcraft being inspired by something else. And there have been times when WoW has been inspired by something else, like the Nintendo quests in the original Ungoro Crater. I remember my Linken's Boomerang from WoW Vanilla. Playing a paladin with no ranged attacks, it was fun having a trinket that you could use to pull a mob. So here's the scaling without Chromie time. As we can see, the only zone that's still challenging without Chromie time is BFA. So my main right now, who I never finished BFA's stories and stuff like that, so it's not an issue if my character plays through BFA now that I'm waiting for Shadowlands to come out, or checking out the game and how it compares to ESO. But for somebody who's been playing BFA all this time, they're done with Najdatar, they're done with the horrific visions, they're done with 8.3, they're done with all the patch 8 content, and all they're doing is raiding. You have a situation here where your level 50 character is just hanging out, waiting, maybe doing like transmog runs or something, waiting for Shadowlands to come out. But your alts can freeze their levels at 49 and do anything else in the game and not have it be boring. Even queue for dungeons. Does Blizzard realize just what they have here with how time walking has gone to the outdoor world like this? Yeah, I understand, and I've said in many, many radio-style discussions over on YouTube that World of Warcraft is trying to catch up to other games these days. Because while they've been kind of running their success into the ground with the declining subs and the times they've annoyed the heck out of their own player base in the last couple of years, with everything that's been going on, other games have been trying new ideas and being successful with them. So, I don't want to reinvent the wheel too much with my prior discussions from last year. So here's a playlist. It's going to be top dog playlist on the channel for a while. This discussion will get added to it and any other discussions that we have. YouTube.com/MultimediaJay. Look for this playlist, World of Warcraft Shadowlands' level 49 problem. And we're going to add this video in there as well. It's got to be a continuation of the discussions we had from BlizzCon last year. It's cool, though. Some of the things I said did not come to pass, so there are no level 1 Death Knights. They still start at a higher level than 1, so like 10 or something. So it's not like they got level squished all the way down to that old joke from when Wrath launched. Level 1 Death Knight running around Elwyn Forest. You could be a level 10 Death Knight running around Elwyn Forest, I think. So I saw one head over to meet the king earlier today that was level 13, so we'll figure it out. So yeah, I'm curious what Blizzard does about this level 49 problem, because Chromie time has basically split the game in two. You can and there's a situation now where unless you're absolutely done with everything else prior to Shadowlands on your alts, it isn't worth it unless you need them to raid or something to take your alts into Shadowlands if you have any chance whatsoever of wanting to do any of the prior stories, content, dungeons, etc. on these characters. Because once you hit level 50, you're booted back to your capital city and Chromie time is shut off. The next step is for Blizzard to make Chromie time something you can toggle on anytime if you don't want to face roll everything that happened before. And that, as they say, is that with that. Since I have transcoding, when I get the World of Warcraft template up and running for this, we're not going to work on this discussion going over to YouTube tonight. I'm going to fire up World of Warcraft on here, and we're going to check this out. We're going to showcase it. But for now, that has been the discussion on World of Warcraft's level 49 problem. These new live versions of MultimediaJay radio style get a little too rambly compared to what I did before sometimes, but it just comes with the turf with the live format. There's still regular YouTube videos for things that need to be direct and way more to the point because you can edit stuff and craft things from scratch. Social media is youtube.com/multimediajay, twitter.com/multimediajay, twitch.tv/multimediajay, and multimediajay.wordpress.com. I want to thank everybody who stopped by tonight. Love this new category, especially now that I know about the stuff going on with Twitch and how talk shows and podcasts is more discoverable than just chatting. A lot of folks don't know that yet. We'll see what happens when more people figure this out. Gotta give my voice a rest and get ready for some WoW streaming. If my transcoding has been turned off, I'm going to test it one more time. We'll go to YouTube. Otherwise, till next time, this is MultimediaJay signing off. Thanks for stopping by.
257. MultimediaJay radio style.